Okay, good evening, everybody. It's 8 o'clock on Wednesday nights, which means it's Baseball Processes Wednesdays with Walt. I want to welcome everybody and remind everybody that we tape these so that people who cannot make the live event are able to watch them whenever they are able. So tonight we're representing Team USA Baseball, World Baseball Classic, coming up here in about another month or so. And we want to get back into that baseball mode. I want to say thank you again to everybody that sent in all of their great questions, a lot of great recommendations, a lot of thoughts and insights from people that kind of when they watch the video share some thoughts that they might have for the upcoming, not only from last week's video, but for the upcoming video this week. We're going to touch upon a few topics tonight. First thing I want to do is I want to answer a question that was sent in to me in reference to what it is that we do, why, and so forth. I just want to let people know that this is something that obviously I'm very passionate about, and I really want to offer insight from a parent's perspective for all aspects and elements to do with youth baseball. This isn't really anything where I want to come across as having all the answers. I certainly don't. But one of the things that I want to let people know within the baseball community is that as a traveling baseball dad, as somebody that's gone through this process at all of the various levels that I've been blessed to go through, I like having the opportunity to give back and provide maybe kind of a roadmap, for lack of a better term, as to a lot of the things that you're going to, the experiences you're going to have, hopefully, and kind of make sure that they're enjoyable, which is key, and also productive. So we don't want to go through youth baseball chasing our tail, so to speak. We want to kind of have a map and have an understanding of which direction we're going. One of the things that I do want to discuss tonight is lessons. And there's a lot of broad kind of subtopics that can come off of lessons. And this is something that I get asked a great deal about. I get asked a great deal of the time how to do lessons, when do they start, who's a good person to do lessons with, how do I know if it's a good instructor, etc. I want to take this back to really, the little boy. And I really want to offer parents some basic foundation information as to why do you even need lessons. When I was a kid, we had schoolyard pickup baseball. We had schoolyard, in between. We called it recess. I don't know if they call it that now. I don't know if that's still politically correct or not. But you would go outside and the kids would learn how to compete. We didn't take lessons, and one of the things that did was taught us how to compete and compromise. A lot of parents want to start lessons at 5, 6, 7 years old, and what we're doing is we're sterilizing the game. We're kind of taking the enjoyment factor away from the game because really you're learning in a box, you're learning in a cage, you're learning in a space, and at that young age I really don't feel that baseball should be a one-on-one type of sport. I don't believe that the boys at that age, and the girls for that matter, really come to have a passion for the game. And I think that if we make things enjoyable, for instance, with both of my boys at a very young age, we got the big red wiffle ball bats. Like, you can't miss it. You swing the bat as hard as you can, and guess what? It's going to go a long way off of that big round red bat. And what that did is it gave them a sense of accomplishment, and they knew in order for them to get the ball to go far, they had to swing the bat, but I never put it on a tee for them when they were very, very little. And I'm saying, again, 5, 6, 7 years old. Now, I understand why parents want to have an instructor, somebody that played collegiately, somebody that played professionally, etc. But really, does that matter to a 5 through 8-year-old, or even for that matter, a 9-year-old? At those ages, 5 through 9, I think it's really important to let the kids understand what the game is all about, running to first base, having the enjoyment of hitting the baseball, having the enjoyment of fielding the ball and throwing the ball, keeping it as simple as possible. Having a lesson, structured lesson, really, in my opinion, will take that fun component. And a lot of boys that are that age, they have the attention span that's not going to last that long. So we're really trying to teach them something, and they're not really understanding why. So when we put a ball on a tee, what we're doing there is we're making them think this is easy. Put a ball on a tee, I take my bat, which is typically too heavy, by the way, and they try to take the ball and hit it off of the tee. Well, there's not a lot of engaging interest, and the kids at that age, they don't learn too much. The next thing is we start talking about pitching way before we start talking about learning to throw a baseball. For the most part, most of the boys that I see at a very young age kind of look like that Volkswagen commercial, when they're trying to throw. And one of the things that again, being blessed with being a college coach and a high school baseball coach, when my boys were little, my boys were around the game, but they were around lots of players. They were around lots of people. And so it wasn't just a one-on-one environment. And I think when you're starting to develop an athlete, one of the things that has to be done is they get competitive on a very low level, but they want to be one of the guys. Even at a 5, 6, or 7-year-old, they look at a boy that might be 10, 11, or 12, and hey, I want to be like that guy. Or they look at somebody that might be in high school, and hey, I want to be like that guy. And so that's really when the seeds are planted. And I was blessed when I was a young guy to grow up in a neighborhood that was very competitive, whether we were playing frisbee baseball, football, hockey, basketball, etc. And so I think we've lost that a lot. So lessons to me are not something that really need to be a large part of the development of a young man or a young boy at 5 to, say, 8 years old. At that age, it should be kept in large groups. So if you're going to, my thing now is one of the things I'm really advocating and starting to implement myself is let's get 4 to 6, maybe 8 boys together in a lesson environment where they're all competing against themselves, in no more than 30 to 45 minutes, but really teaching them the little nuances of throwing the ball properly, swinging the bat, in something where it's light enough so that they can handle the swings. The ball is it's not necessarily a 5-ounce baseball, it's more of a softer, what they call bitty league baseball, a little sponge to it, but they won't have any fear if it hits them in the chest or they don't catch it properly and it might hit them off the wrist. They start to have a more of an enjoyment aspect to the lesson or within the group. You also want to keep that competitive edge at a very young age. We don't need to really be separating them one-on-one. The next thing is okay, now we're 9 through 12, which we're hitting Little League or Rec League ball or things like that. It is critical to understand the purpose and the place that Little League baseball, Rec League baseball, those ages, 9 through 12, what it really means and what it represents. And it really is about the first time that your son or daughter is going to have a coach, someone that's going to be volunteering their time. As we mentioned earlier, in the days of Little League when I was a kid, you'd have a coach that would be there for several years. They'd go through, different years, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Now it's more of a father, more of a parent, a relative, things of that nature. And I really want to kind of get back to that. 9 through 12, that's going to be the foundation of a baseball player. That is really kind of foundation piece 1. And that's where we either learn to have a passion and a love for the sport, the routine of practice, the anticipation of practice, and reps. We get so bogged down with lessons for 30 minutes to an hour, game for 2 hours, or most of them are timed between an hour and 30 minutes, hour and 50 minutes, 2 hours, and then we're done. It wasn't like that. It should not be like that. In case in point, I bring you the Latin American countries, the Asian countries. I mean, those especially like areas like the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Venezuela, they just play games all day long. There's really no such thing as 9 innings. And one of the things that they're doing is they're competing. Obviously, they're keeping score, but they're hitting the ball, they're running the bases, they're learning how to throw baseballs and compete against those hitters, fielding balls, things of that nature. But they're getting reps. They're getting more opportunities. Whereas with a lesson, we're doing things very robotic and very generic, and where there's really no energy, enthusiasm, adrenaline. There's no game speed, and we don't have that kind of neighborhood versus neighborhood, that type of environment where the kids kind of get active and involved. The next thing is your coach at 9 and 12 years old is really going to lay the groundwork for an understanding of the basic rules, the understanding of how many outs, man on first, where's the ball going. That is critical. So when you're at the mercy, obviously within Little League, of the draft, you're at the mercy with rec ball and so forth. But when we start talking about 8U, 9U, 10U, and you start talking about this structured routine of my boy's only going to play against 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds. Okay, lessons aren't just for an 8-year-old. They're not just for a 9-year-old. A lesson is to learn the game as a whole in its entirety. Okay, so we're kind of doing, we're kind of going in opposite directions when you say, okay, a lesson is going to be a ball on a tee. We're going to learn the proper swing plane. No boy at 8 or 9 understands plane of the bat, how to turn a barrel. How many times have we sat in a cage? I don't know, I sit in a cage sometimes and I'll listen to instructors and I hear them, all this terminology. An 8 through 12-year-old, even up through maybe 13 or 14, they do not understand pitching lesson. Arm side run, arm path, arm stroke. All these things, and it goes way over their heads, and it's too much too soon. You need to keep things simple. You need to keep things fun. That is the key phrase for those ages of 5 through 8, 9 through 12. Simple, competitive, fun. And that's how it should be at those ages. So now we get to be, say, 13 years old. At 13 years old, most parents don't understand that the boys that play Little League and Rec Ball, 9 and 12, the vast majority will give baseball one more year at 13. And then after that age, they're going to figure out this sport isn't for me. It's just the way the numbers work. I'm not making these numbers up. I always tell parents, enjoy it now, because in another couple of years, if your son's 10 or 11, he may say, this sport isn't for me. I like soccer, I like football, whatever. Girls, school, a variety of different things. And so what I try to encourage parents is the love of the game comes from those joys, simple joys of being a kid, going to a Little League game, and all of a sudden you get the game-winning hit, and your team comes flying out of the dugout, and your coaches are jumping up and down, and you see your parents are all happy. Those are simple moments, and that's really what we're trying to get for a young man, is to have that foundation as far as the love of the game is concerned. At 13 and 14, it really becomes a division, a big fork in the road. And what you see is a lot of boys say, I like this game. They begin to embrace the challenges as far as the size differences, as far as the strength differences, all of the things that are going to start to occur. And going back to the lessons, critical ages is for lessons to learn the higher level of the game. We'll begin at 12, but really take shape 13 through 15. So you have the foundation piece from 9 through 12, where we establish a like, a love, a passion for the sport, where there's an excitement, where there's enthusiasm. And then from there becomes this, okay, now the big field, now the 60 feet, 6 inches. Now I'm going to be hitting balls, 300 feet. I'm going to be asked to hit balls 350 feet. The size of the field looks as if it's the Grand Canyon. And here we are, and we're practicing in a cage that's 10 by 20, 20 by 30, etc. It doesn't give boys a really good representation of the strength that's needed from that, as far as the next level of baseball. So at 13, 12, 13, and 14, that is where your son is going to decide two things. He's willing to work and really is excited about learning the game at a higher level. Most boys are just starting open baseball, although down south they play open baseball. By that I mean they take leads. Little League baseball is closed baseball. You can't take leads. You have to wait till the ball passes the catcher, etc. Well, now open baseball at 13, even if they've played open on a smaller diamond, when you're on a bigger diamond, and instead of 60-foot bases, we're at 90-foot bases. Instead of 45 or 50-foot pitching mounds, we're at 60 feet 6 inches. Now it becomes an entirely different game. And now we have to be taught at a much higher level. But let's consider this to be almost like a high school kind of algebra or calculus. If I don't have the basic understanding of basic math, I can't do all of these things that we're asking these boys to do. And so when you're starting to take a lesson, the two things you want to find out is, who is the instructor? What is his temperament? How does he disseminate information? Is he giving good information? Is this his personal opinion? Most people have theories. How many of you, myself included, have ever gone online, hit the Google, go to Twitter? Everybody's giving you their advice on hitting. Everybody's giving you their advice on pitching, catching, etc. Everybody's going to have opinion. Who's right? Who's wrong? Nobody is wrong in the sense that they all strongly believe that their way of teaching works better than another. But at the end of the day, if this doesn't work with your son's physical capabilities, not abilities, his capabilities, we're wasting time. The other thing is, you have to be honest with yourself as a parent. When you take your son for a lesson, do you know what they're working on? Do you know where they are within the progression? Do you know if he's physically capable of performing these moves and these baseball drills? Is he physically able to do them? Have you conferred and talked with the instructor? Because if you haven't, we're basically setting your son up for failure. And so by that I mean, a lot of parents will take lessons, and that person that's telling you your son's going to be incredible. He's going to be on the high school varsity team. This guy's a slam dunk. He's giving you information. Okay, first of all, he doesn't coach your son in high school, so don't make those. And then the next thing is, he's giving you an opinion. He's giving you an opinion. Now, there are those people that do lessons that want to continue to cater to your dream, meaning you as a parent obviously want to know that your son's good. You want to hope he's good. You want to hope that he's going to go far within the game. And so on that note, when these people are coming back and giving you feedback, is it real? Or is it just meaning to give you something so that you come back again and again and again? And that's really, at the end of the day, you have to come to an understanding. Are you going to somebody because he tells you the things you want to hear, or are you going to go to somebody because he's really being honest with you, candid with you, and telling you the things that need to be addressed with your son? Because anyone can sit there and say, I don't like the way he's swinging. Who was he working with before? And what did that guy teach him? Okay, well, everybody's different. Where was he in the process when you pulled him from that one instructor to bring him to the super instructor? And the thing here is that we have all these pitching camps and pitching, the ranch, pitching ranch, hitting, vaults. They come up with a million names. I get it. I completely understand. Everybody is marketing a business, and there's nothing proprietary about their information. They're just giving you their spin, their take, their understanding of a specific movement within the sport, whether they're a hitting instructor, pitching, etc. And so here's what we need to do. At 13, you as a parent need to understand, is your son saying to you, I want to get better? Is he verbally saying that? Can you see it in his practice habits? I want to get better. Okay, if that's the case, now we want to look at at lessons. Okay, where to do a lesson, who to do a lesson with. My number one thing for both of my boys and people that I work with, I always try to say, your instructor has to do a thorough evaluation before you start a lesson. In other words, don't just take him, sign up for a half an hour. Why? Because he doesn't know what you do. Have an evaluation first. Let him tell you where he thinks your son is at. Let him explain to you what he sees or envisions as far as a progression chart or a process or a plan, a routine, specifically whatever aspect of the sport you're going after. So if you're pitching and you're a pitcher and you want a pitching lesson, I would need to see how your son throws a baseball first. Because if I don't know how he throws, I certainly can't teach him how to pitch. The next thing I want to know is I want to look inside and kind of get to know the young man. It's very easy to say to someone, you're broken, you need a lesson. That's not always necessarily true. Sometimes it's just an adjustment. And sometimes when boys start to think about lessons, they get robotic. So you don't want somebody that's going to make your son a robot and he's just doing the same lessons with every single person. You don't want to have somebody that falls in love with one specific type of swing, one specific type of pitching technique. Every single hitter, every single pitcher, every single fielder, they all have two things: athleticism and the different types of skill sets, just like fingerprints. Everybody's body moves differently. Tall, small, thin, stocky. Everybody moves differently. So you don't want somebody that's just going to turn your son into a robot. They have to see how your son moves. And once they see that, then you can start to implement, skill sets, work habits, drills, etc. The other thing I really want to ask is, prior to, let's say, 1995 through 2000, before the avalanche of indoor sports facilities, before there was Grand Slam and Hit Quarters and all these various places, before the indoor baseball facility, where did we all go for baseball? And the answer is, quite simply, we had a wall, we had a lot of balls, we had lacrosse balls, tennis balls, golf balls, baseballs, old beat up balls, we had old beat up bats, and we've fallen in love with lessons and gadgets, swag as the kids call them. Between Evo Shield pads and brand new gloves every year and bats. These bats are not magic. These brand new spikes, they don't make you 10 miles an hour faster. These brand new gloves, they don't come with stickum. These are things that you have to understand. In other parts of the world, here's what they do. They take a lacrosse ball or a golf ball, they throw it off a wall 1,000 times. And you can get creative. You can make games out of that. The other thing you can do, take a broomstick, get acorns, rocks, anything, hit them into the woods. I mean, that's great for eye-hand coordination. I mean, a lot of simple things can be done. And other than trying to put a ball on a tee and trying to tell a young man that's how easy hitting a baseball is, it's not. By throwing the rock up, using your eye-hand coordination, timing, getting the understanding of, okay, I got to drive this rock, I want to hit this rock. Bottle caps. We used to use bottle caps when we were kids. I know they don't have those anymore, but bottle caps. With a glove, you don't have time to just get a piece of cardboard and put a strap in the back. I'm not asking you to go back to prehistoric days of the 70s and 80s. I'm just saying there are a lot of things that boys can do on their own, in their own environment. They can get creative. Heck, again, going back to my boys, they would create games in the backyard, and throw things. The pitchback that we have, that has this nice mesh, and you throw it hard and it bounces up in the air. Okay, that's for outfielders. But a bat and a ball, they're both very solid. There's no mesh, there's no spring. We're not using a tennis racket. So use a wall, throw the ball off the wall. The other aspect of lessons I want people to understand is personalities. Having sons that have gone through the baseball, the entire process, you're going to look for people that want to put thumbprints on your sons. Everybody wants to put a thumbprint. I did this. I did that. See how he's throwing? See that curveball? They sit on a ball bucket. See how well he's throwing strikes? Okay, well, anybody can throw a strike in a cage. There's nobody behind the backstop. There's no umpire. There's no hitter. There's no adrenaline. There's no nothing. There's an easy heartbeat. Try having to throw that pitch. 3 balls, no strikes, bases loaded, and you're in front of a couple hundred people, and you have to throw a strike. Can your son do that? Is he mentally prepared to do that? Is your instructor teaching your son to do that? It's called perfect practice. And I learned that in football from Coach Dubzinski. You know, I used to make our guys in college, you know, I would say to the pitcher, okay, you're going to throw a pitch, and it has to be on the outer quadrant. And if it's not a strike, the entire team has to run. Not you, the entire team has to run for 10 minutes. You don't think that guy was feeling something? I mean, those are the types of things within the context of a lesson that are going to add more and enhance your son's ability to compete than just sitting there on a mound or on a flat ground and just throwing to an instructor with a glove. It doesn't do you any good. The other thing is hitting. You have to make that ball move. Boys have to understand what playing, being on time and being on plane, what those things mean. Again, at the right and appropriate age, not at 5 through 11 or 12. At 13 through 15, what most parents are failing to recognize is that 8th and 9th grade, which is that 13, 14, and 15, those boys are being put into situations where college coaches are now starting to follow and get an understanding and evaluation of your son's abilities. And so you need the instructor that can take your son beyond high school. You need an instructor that has a plan and there's a progression that's being done every week. And you don't want to paint over paint with lessons. And the other aspect of this, and I really want to make sure this hits home, is this. Baseball at 13 is like the Great Divide. A lot of players stop playing at that age. The game gets too difficult. It gets too challenging. Pitchers are throwing too hard. Hitters are hitting the ball too fast. Here's what happens at 14 years old. We have given boys a false sense of security that everything goes 11U, 12U, 13. It doesn't work that way. When you get to high school, you're going to be asked to compete against these boys. And a question that I got last week asked why I keep bringing that up. In my neighborhood, most of the boys in my neighborhood were much older than I was. And I didn't ask to see their birth certificates. And guess what? You shouldn't either. If your son is playing baseball at 13 years old and somebody's really, really big and really, really good, you don't need to worry about birth certificates. You don't need to worry about sizes, ages, because they got to learn to compete against boys at the high school and college level that are going to be bigger, faster, stronger, more physical than they are. The other thing is this. If you, as a parent, are taking lessons thinking that your son is going to become a Major League All-Star, a Major League player, a Division I athlete, we're chasing the wrong rabbit. You're trying to help them have more of an enjoyable experience within the game. That's what a lesson is for. If I'm teaching a hitter or a pitcher, I tell mom, dad, and the player, whether you go 0 for 4 or 4 for 4, it's not me, it's you. And you have to understand that when you're up at bat, it's your at bat, not my at bat, not mom or dad, it's you. When you're on the mound, poise, composure, control your heartbeat, focus, enjoy your moment. Those are the types of things that need to be discussed, practiced, and developed within lessons. If you're paying for lessons just to watch your son throw a baseball or hit a baseball off of a tee, then you're not going to be benefiting from it at all. Last evening, I actually watched somebody do a hitting lesson, and the boy hit 25 balls straight up into the air, never made an adjustment, and all the coach in the cage did was kept throwing him baseballs. And at the end, he shook his hand, shook his dad's hand, and $40 later, what did we accomplish? So my point here is this. When you're doing lessons, know what the plan is. Have a definitive game plan as far as the progression of skill sets that are going to be developed. Next thing is make sure you're working towards what your son's physical capabilities are. Don't worry about what the next door neighbor is doing or the other boy on the other team. You want him to throw as fast as Jimmy or hit as far as Johnny. It doesn't work that way. Your son's physical capabilities and his passion for the sport will take him as far as he wants to go. Next week, we're going to start discussing truly the recruiting process with regard to college coaches, what they see when they come to a game, what they want to see when they come to a game, and more importantly, how are we going to contact them? How are you going to contact them? When are you going to contact them? So this time next week, I welcome more questions. I want to see if we can get people to email those questions to baseballprocess14@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and obviously here on Facebook. Help spread the word. And till next week, we'll send out another video, and we'll see you then. Thank you.